Hey there, my name is Shane Craddock, and this is the Inner Edge podcast, where I share a different take on how to lead and live a sustainable, high-performance life. Over the course of different episodes, I'm going to challenge the belief that tension, stress, and struggle are essential to success and creativity. My experience is that there's an easier way, there's a better way, and indeed there's an essential way that we need to explore for the times that we live in. So let's go ahead, let's jump in and explore. Hi there, welcome to today's episode. I'm going to be talking today about a word that is quite, I think, common now. Certainly when I was starting off my career in this area, maybe 22, 23 years ago, it wasn't common at all, and it's the word mindset. But before you switch off and say, sure, I know enough about mindset, I'm not sure about that. And I'm going to talk today about something that I created maybe, 10, 11, 12 years ago, perhaps, called the Mindset Performance Loop, to try to explain to clients a different angle on mindset that actually is pretty important. And even, I might come back to this in later episodes, I still think even a lot of work in terms of mindset has been done by a lady called Carol Dweck and many, many others. And Carol Dweck would have been famous for, I suppose, coining the terms fixed mindset versus growth mindset. But I still believe even in that area, the understanding or application that most people take out of her work, which has been very good, but I think a lot of it for most people is just very superficial. It's surface level. There's a lot of depth to mindset, and indeed that's why she created a book about it, which you can kind of get the overall concept in one page, but it's the depth is really where it comes to life. Now, the angle I'm taking here, I kind of take it for granted, to be honest with you, at this stage, and I think that's what I realized this week, because it was provoked. The idea for this episode was provoked by an email inquiry that I got from somebody who had requested a few years ago to use my model, the MPL model, Mindset Performance Loop model, at an international pharmaceutical conference. So Nuala, if you're listening to this episode, I know you listen to the podcast occasionally, this is because of you. So but also over the years, or certainly over the last 10 years, I've had requests from people internationally to use the model with appropriate copyright recognition to myself, which is always nice. I've had teachers in the US wanting to use it with their schools and their students. I've had a pastor in Holland request to use it with his congregation, a consulting firm in Germany, a CEO with global reach asking could he use it with his executive teams around the world. I was very flattered with that one. But all of it's very humbling, because it's nice to know that on one level something that seems so simple, but obviously strikes a chord with people, that people want to use it. And I might even do a little bit more on this over the coming months. We'll see. Again, I perhaps take it for granted. So let me explain a little bit more about what I want to talk about today. And I think the key point I want to create for your mind is your mindset creates a performance loop. So you got to be very sensitive to what your mindset is. Okay. Now, what's a mindset? There's probably lots of different definitions. I'll give you Shane's definition. For me, a mindset is essentially where you have a fixed thought or a fixed belief on something. So when I say it's fixed, it's immovable. You're usually probably not aware of it. It's just, no, that's what I believe about this. And so it creates a filter, which I'm going to get into now. And that mindset, though, could be around something like a person, how you see a person, what you feel about them, how you see your life. Generally, you'll have an overall macro mindset for how you see your life, and indeed how you see your work, how you see your company, literally how you see the world. Everything, your mind will throw up a mindset for pretty much everything in milliseconds. And it's so subtle and it's so quick that you may not even realize it. Now, a simple way perhaps to think about mindset is a lot of our thoughts that are flying around in our minds, I kind of think they're like jelly, warm jelly that hasn't set yet. You know, the way you kind of, certainly I remember from my childhood, we used to have Chivers jelly. So you kind of get the big bar of concentrated jelly, and then you put it into a bowl, you put boiling water into it, and melts the jelly and becomes quite fluid. That's most of our thinking. It's kind of flow thinking. It doesn't necessarily stick. But then if you leave the jelly, it kind of sets over time and becomes wibbly wobbly jelly. Haven't heard that phrase for a while. So the jelly sets, and essentially that's almost like a mindset where it might be floating around for a little bit. It's quite soft, it's fluid, but then maybe it just settles and sets, and then it becomes fixed. So I think when I'm talking about the mindset performance loop, I am going to leave a link in the show notes underneath this episode, wherever you're watching it. There'll be a link to the graphic, the mindset performance loop. And I'm going to put in also a 10-minute video of a slightly younger Shane explaining the concept in a different way, right? So that'll be worth checking out. Now, if you can visualize this as whatever you're doing, just be careful with this when you're walking along, or hopefully not driving or doing any other activity, right? But visualize the word mindset in your mind, and then an arrow coming out from that to the right, and that will lead to attitude. So a mindset creates an attitude, or you could also use the word filter. So if I have a mindset or a belief on something, it's going to create an attitude or a filter on that thing or person. And then from that attitude will come behavior, because my attitude will create a behavior. Now, you could say, from my point of view, within the word behavior, you would also have feelings, because obviously attitude will create a feeling towards something, which ultimately impacts your behavior. So the behavior, in terms of what you're trying to do, could be, we'll say, positive or negative in terms of the ultimate result you're trying to create. But you may not realize that the attitude side of things is really affecting the behavior, and obviously attitude is coming from mindset. So whatever behavior you're doing or not doing leads to certain types of action. No action is an action. Or, if it's a positive behavior, well, obviously there'll be positive actions. And if it's positive actions, they will lead to positive results. So the next one is, so we're going from mindset to attitude, attitude to behavior, behavior down to actions, and then actions down to results. So if my mindset is supporting a positive view on whatever I'm doing, ultimately I'll have positive behavior, positive actions, I'll have better results. So if I'm a salesperson who's got a really strong, resilient, focused, optimistic attitude, I more than likely will get very good results, regardless of circumstances. If I have a negative attitude, well, obviously that's going to ripple all the way down. And that applies not just to sales now, it's technical, it's leadership in a business context, but also actually as a parent or as a coach in a sporting context or a sporting person. So mindset leads to attitude, leads to behavior, leads to actions, leads to results, but they could be plus or minus, but it all starts with mindset. So this is part one now of what I want to explain. So if you're thinking about it from a company perspective, I think one of the biggest mistakes that companies make is that they focus too much on training, which is focusing on really trying to change and improve behavior, and less on mindset, If somebody's mindset is off, it doesn't matter what kind of training you do. And I think that's just logical common sense. Yet so many companies really focus more of their resources on training, which is focused on behavior, rather than actually focusing on, well, hang on a second here, what's the mindset of the people here? And that's worth then reflecting on for yourself before you kind of get into any sort of behavioral type of training thing. Because if the mindset's off, forget about it. You're going to waste your money. And that's why a lot of money is wasted. And that's why a lot of training, in my view, doesn't work. Now, companies are getting more interested in the psychological side of it, the mindset side of it, which is great, but they're only scratching the surface in my experience. And I deal with companies of all sizes, so I'm kind of familiar with even, I suppose, the general approach. And obviously, I'm trying to change that. Now, part two of the loop, this is where the loop comes in, is that whatever results you get, they will reinforce the mindset that you started with. So if I have a negative mindset on perhaps, say, my work, that'll ripple all the way down. My performance probably won't be at its best. My results probably won't be at their best. And I'll kind of know that. And then my results will be lesser than what I would expect for myself. And maybe some other people would notice that. I might even be commented on. But for myself, that's going to reinforce the view that, it'll reinforce the negative mindset. Of course, then the flip up happens as well. If I'm actually got a very enthusiastic, open, optimistic, energized mindset, well, that'll ripple all the way down to better results. I get the best out of myself. If I'm getting the best out of myself, it kind of reinforces the fact of, this is all pretty good. So it's easy to keep my mindset going. So you have to watch that, because if your mindset is off, that's the start really of a downward spiral. Now, to kind of bring it into maybe a story context, a true story context, I had one client in a tech company years ago where he never really wanted to talk about mindset, because in general his mindset was actually pretty good. But you see, the issue with that is, if you don't understand the mechanics of how your mindset works. When you get caught out, you can get stuck. But anyway, he came to me one day. I was working with several people in this company, and he asked to have a chat. He just said, look, he wanted to get some tactics or hacks to knock him out of the mode that he was in. Now, he didn't flag mindset. So from my point of view, he was all focused on the hacks and the tricks, which is generally what most people want, because they want the quick hit, the silver bullet. But while you might get some relief from pain, like an aspirin, in the short term from that, it generally doesn't solve the problem. So for me, I suppose I've learned the hard way for myself. I have to start digging around, looking for what's the mindset here now for this guy, or what's the belief that he has perhaps that's holding him back. And I started asking questions. He was slightly annoyed at the start, he resisted, but eventually we got into it. And after about half an hour, I remember him looking at me thinking, oh my God, I just realized when it started. It started a few months ago. I'd had a conversation with somebody, and I took out of that conversation the belief that I wasn't going to get the promotion that I've been working my ass off for the last 2 years for. Now, if you believe that, do you think it's going to affect your attitude, your behavior, your actions, your results? Well, it certainly did for him. And this guy was in charge of a pretty significant team that was connected to sales. And what was fascinating, he said he just realized, his performance had dropped, but in the same period over which was 3 months, the sales had dipped in the team, and he couldn't explain it. And he was getting, there was extra pressure on him to reverse that. And he realized now he'd been looking the wrong direction. And in that moment, he saw that there was a mindset, and it had rippled down, affected his results. But it had done more than that. It had looped back up to reinforce the mindset of negativity. Now, once we caught it, he could see it, and in an instant, he could actually drop it, and then he could choose a better mindset. But the key bit was to catch it. Now, if you've been tracking my podcast, you'll know, I think in one of the early episodes, I shared a recording of a talk a couple of years ago where I was sharing kind of a maybe 15-minute talk about my personal story, where I was locked in a depression loop. It was a suicidal depression loop, and I was very lucky to get out of it. But that was the start of my journey to what I'm doing now. If it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have had the insights that I got to allow me to create a different script for myself, and then to help others do the same. But my performance and work at that time dropped severely. And because my performance dropped, it reinforced the mindset. And so just make sure I'm clear on this. The visual you should see in your mind is mindset goes to attitude, goes to behavior, goes to actions, goes to results, and results over time is your performance. And then your performance, as you see it then, will reinforce the mindset. And I think another story that's coming to mind is where I was working with a large retailer a couple of years ago, a well-known retailer in the country where I live, Ireland. And I was working with the entire senior management team and the entire middle management team doing training, which is my Mindshift program, kind of my foundational program. And I remember in one of the workshops, we're working in groups of 16, 17 people. One of them, there was a manager sitting up the front on the first workshop, and she had her arms folded. And every time I'd say something that I thought was quite clever, she'd just roll her eyes to heaven. And she'd make a face, and she was quite upfront about it. So at the first break, I just went to her and said, "Hey, look, I can see I'm entertaining you here. What's up?" And she said, "Look, I'm sorry." She said, "I'm just, this isn't going to work here." And I said, "Why not?" She said, "Oh, it's never going to take the culture. People won't take it." I said, "But I know, but the senior management are trying to help that. That's why the entire senior management, middle management team are focused on doing this." She said, "Well, it's not going to work because I can't see my boss doing this." So her mindset was that was her belief. It's not going to work. That created an attitude, which created a behavior, which was, I'm not going to listen, which resulted in, I suppose, lack of action. So there was some actions coming out of the workshop. We were focused in this training on Mindshift. Essentially is about helping people to own their lives, to get the best of themselves in work, but also to have a life. And that's a key philosophy of mine. Be your best, but also have a life, because it reinforces you at your best. Anyway, there was a gap of 2 weeks between that workshop and the next one. And when we came back in, one of the first things that I do naturally is I say, right, let's review where we're at. What was working for you guys? What were the results? What were the wins? What were the losses? And one by one, I don't know, maybe a dozen people started telling all these amazing results just in 2 weeks' time, not just necessarily on work, but very much on the personal side. And I could see the body language of this manager, this woman, change significantly. She was leaning in. There was no arms folded. I just see this look of rapt attention. And when everybody finished that review, she actually put up her hand to me and I said, oh no, here we go. Now what's going to happen here? She said, I'm sorry, can I say something? I said, okay. I wasn't sure what was going to come out of her mouth. And she said, I just want to apologize. I know I brought a negative attitude into this workshop. I was convinced this wasn't going to work. I'm listening to the results today with amazement. I'm disappointed in myself. I'm embarrassed, but I just want to say I'm all in now. I'm all in because I'm just amazed that the results that are happening. And I guess when you see results, and I know she was looking at people who she thought couldn't get those changes, and they were happening. And from that point forward, to be fair to her, her mindset shifted. She caught her own mindset, and then by doing nothing else, attitude change, behavior change, actions change, results change. And over the next 4 weeks of the program, the remaining 4 weeks, she literally became, I suppose, the guiding light of the entire program. Insofar as that, she just got stuck in, applied herself, and she transformed. And her boss said to me at the end of the program, what did you do to her? And I said, honestly, I didn't do anything to her. She just saw something about herself, and then she just applied herself. The mindset got out of the way. And since then, she's gone on to be, I think you could call her a rock star in that company in terms of what she's done, the career she's created for herself, and then the impact she's had on other people, because she actually saw something that you can never take away. She saw the power of her own mindset, what she was doing to herself, and then that caused a shift that is never going to go away. That's a true story. So for you, what's your attitude to your overall life? What's your attitude or your mindset to your work? What's your attitude or mindset to the people around you that you apparently care about the most? If it's less than 8 out of 10, where 10 is brilliant, but if it's less than 8 out of 10, I would say you've got a mindset issue. And you might be listening to this going, yeah, but like, you're not in my circumstances. You don't have my job. You don't have my boss. You don't have my company. You don't have my challenges, or whatever your challenges are. I can hand on my heart 100% say to you, this is nothing to do with circumstances. If you are blaming your circumstance for your mindset, that's your opportunity. That is your opportunity, because it's possible to separate your circumstances completely from your mindset. It's not always easy, but it is possible. Now, the other thing I'd say to you is with your mindset is, can you be 100% sure it's true? 100%? Most people cannot be 100% sure. And so what if you just experimented for one day with the absolute opposite of perhaps a negative mindset that you might have? Because look, bottom line, you're making it up anyway, right? So why not pick something that actually gives you a better result? And I can honestly say to you, as I'm recording this, that I have seen miracles happen with people because they caught their own mindset and then they decided to change it. So, final thought for today. Your mindset can be controlled regardless of circumstances. So what mindset do you want to pick? Ciao for now. Bye-bye.